Hello and welcome to Educated STEM. I'm Kate, the founder of Educated STEM, and today we're going to continue talking about postdocs. And if you have a job offer, is it good? Is this something that you want um, to agree to? So hopefully you have watched my previous video on whether you should do a postdoc and you have considered all of the pros and cons. But I know that sometimes you'll have an offer of a postdoc, maybe from someone within your field that you are familiar with. Maybe it is one of your examiners who thought that you were fantastic and want to kind of bring you into their research group. And those are wonderful. It's incredibly flattering. But the question is it a good job offer for you? And so let's dive deeper into that. Again, this document is available to download on my Patreon page, Educated STEM. It will cost you a whole $3. So hopefully you can afford that and you can go and download it for some advice. I will say also consider getting the how to select a mentor document as well, because that also comes into it. And also, if you haven't already watched my video on how to select a mentor, a lot of the advice is also applicable to postdocs. So go and have a look at that too. So my main things about when you're thinking about having a mentor are three elements: your desire to do the research, your potential relationship with the mentor, and whether you like the feel of the lab. So the people who work in it, how the lab and offices work, how it operates. Is this somewhere that you are going to be comfortable? So if each factor meets your expectations, then you may be on your way to having a really good position in order to do successful research. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk about some questions I want you to consider. So, are you excited about the research? This seems a really obvious choice, but if you're not excited about the research, going to work, 5 days a week or more for, 8 hours or more a day, it's not going to be fun. You're not going to want to be there. You're not going to put in the effort. And remember, this is a postdoc, it's a training position, it's temporary. You need to get as much work out of this as possible, get your publications, go to some conferences. If you don't enjoy the research, that is going to really, really be challenging for you. My next question is, are there preliminary results for the research that you're going to be doing to build upon? Because that makes it ever so slightly easier because there is already a foundation. Is there existing funding for the role and how long does it last? Can that funding be renewed? And if it runs out, what happens? Are you out of the lab? Will you just be moved on to a different project? It's unpleasant to talk about money, but you don't want to start and then realize that the funding is about to run out and you're back to square one finding another job. Will you learn new techniques and skills? This is a key thing for me. I really wanted to learn a technique in my first postdoc, and I wasn't allowed to. And then I learned it in my second postdoc, and my first postdoc mentor saw my work and said, I didn't know you could do that. And, I couldn't when I worked for him. He wouldn't let me learn it. So, he could have used that skill set if he had allowed me to develop it before I did. Um, so, again, what are you going to get out of this experience? If it's just doing more of the same techniques, you're not really learning and growing as a scientist. So, what's the point? Will you be able to write your own fellowship application to get some independence and autonomy? Some, professors don't want you to have any autonomy at all. They want to be able to dictate what you do, how you do it. But if you have your own fellowship, you do have your own kind of scientific freedom. You can do things that maybe your mentor would advise you not to. And so again, that would be fab and would allow you to then potentially leave if you've got a certain funding. Some allows you to do research where you are and then do a few more years at junior professor level, which is really good if you want to go the academic route. My next point is key, and it certainly bit me in the bottom. So, if you are replacing someone who has left, so a postdoc was already doing research, they have since moved on or will be moving on, why did they leave? Um, and don't just assume that what the PI tells you is the truth, um, because often if the PI is going to be seen in a bad light, they're not going to tell you that. They want you to come and do the research. But I can tell you, I took over someone's project and I met them years later at a conference, and we both had a chuckle. The reasons he left were the reasons I ended up making sure I did a second postdoc somewhere else. You know, the issues were exactly the same. And so if I had spoken to him before, maybe I wouldn't have accepted that postdoc position. Maybe I would, I don't know. But don't just assume whatever you are told, especially if you have the option to talk to people in the lab or to actually talk to the person who is leaving. Does the PI or the group or the institution have a good reputation? And this also kind of goes hand in hand with, do you feel comfortable around them? Do you feel that you're going to have a good relationship with them or that you can build one? Does it feel like this is a group that is going to be supportive and that you can be successful in? So just like, you know, you want to have a good relationship with your mentor, you also need a good relationship with the people in your group, because if you don't, then that can definitely cause an acrimonious environment and you're not going to be able to do your best research in that environment. Another one, does the PI have good connections and collaborators? Now, this might seem really silly, but you need to build your network. And the easiest way of doing that is, say you're at a conference, you know, your mentor is like, oh, you know, come over and meet my amazing postdoc, you know, please meet this. And, you know, they do it repeatedly. So you are, you know, meeting all of these new people, you know, getting to know them, hopefully adding them to your network. You absolutely don't want someone who, when they're at a conference, are like, no, 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 I'm talking to the adults. I don't want to introduce you to my peers. You know, they're kind of like looking at them, going, no, 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 I'm not sharing with you. That's not going to help you at all. Likewise, you know, are you going to collaborate with other people? You know, sometimes you want a paper with very few names on it, but others, you know, you need a technique or you need to have a result that someone's already done, and you can add them to the paper. That might be very beneficial. Will you be able to begin a collaboration, which you might then be able to continue when you leave? Um, if you decide to move away from academia, how is this PI going to react? Because otherwise, you know, they might think, oh, you know, I've just wasted X number of years, you know, mentoring this person, and they're not going to go the academic route. I wasted my time. One of my favorite things to do is to find the mentor on LinkedIn and see who they're linked to. If they're not linked to anyone in a pharmaceutical company, then probably they're not going to be particularly happy if you decide not to go the academic route. But if they have a number of people in different companies, then that could be fabulous. They might be willing to connect you with them when you leave. So just consider that. Hopefully, if you're doing a postdoc, you might have an idea of what is next, and you're not just focused on, I'm doing this postdoc, without any kind of idea of the future. A good question is, has the PI mentored other postdocs previously? How many of them? How successful were they? So did they get publications? Were they at good journals? And where are they now? And you might learn an awful lot if you hear how the PI talks about their previous postdocs. So if they, you know, I'm really proud of this postdoc, they have gone on to, you know, X, Y, and Z. If they only talk about academia, then you probably know that maybe they only want you to go that route. If they're open to pharmaceutical companies and things like that, then that should also become very, very obvious. If someone has left science completely and has maybe gone on to be, I don't know, a consultant or, use those skills to completely do something different. Um, do they sound like that's a good thing, or does it sound like they've wasted their time? So listen to, the things they say, how they say it. It's going to teach you an awful lot about this person you are considering to work for. Will you have the opportunity to travel to conferences? How often and who is going to pay for that? If you are lucky enough to have someone as a mentor who has oodles of money, then maybe you're going to them once a year. Maybe you're going internationally once a year. That would be fabulous because, again, you're going to be continuing to build your network. Will you have the opportunity to teach? I know a lot of professors do have their own teaching load, and sometimes they ask you to assist them or to help prepare something for them. And that is all good experience to have, especially if you want to become either a teacher or if you want to go the academic route. But even then, those skills are absolutely transferable outside of academia. Will you have the opportunity to write grants? This is also a big one. Um, and you do want someone who's going to be considerate of your time. I've had, people ask me to assist writing a grant which is due in, 2 weeks' time or something. And that is just awful because you're not going to be putting in a good product. You're going to be, highly, highly stressed. You might have to stop doing your own research in order to do that. Or they might think that you can do your research and then just write, the grant in your evenings and spare time. Um, so, this could be a good one for experience, but it could also be extremely stressful. Will you have the opportunity to have more responsibility, and what will that look like? So maybe you're mentoring a research associate, a graduate student, maybe you're helping a lab manager, or maybe you are fulfilling the role of a lab manager. Um, let's think about what you want to do. Is there a postdoc support system at the institution? This is key. And this can look in a few different flavors. So it could be a postdoctoral association where the postdocs actually run an association themselves. So they might put on activities for you. Maybe they can point you towards resources. I'm hoping that there's a postdoctoral office where there are people who are paid to assist you. And there might even be a careers office. So if you're in any doubt, make your way to the institution's website. Pop in postdoc. Hopefully, a postdoc office will show up. Um, and you can also go to the National Postdoctoral Association website. They have institutional partners who pay money to allow any of the postdocs in the institution to have free access to any of the resources on the MPA's website, which is a fantastic perk. So maybe you can find them on there as well. Will your PI have any issues with you being involved with either a postdoc office or an association? And this might sound a bit silly, but I've come across so many professors who they consider they're paying for your time. They want you in a lab at all times. They don't want you disappearing off and having, an hour seminar on how to work on your CV, how to interview, how to negotiate, what kind of careers there are for you, because that's not helping them. They need you to do the research. You're basically learning how to leave and how to be successful. Um, so, talk to other people in the group, see if your PI is actually going to be encouraging you to attend these sorts of things. Are there personal and professional development programs, either put on again by one of the postdoc groups or maybe a careers office? What do you expect from your postdoc experience? So let's, write down some goals and then ask the relevant questions to see if the proposed postdoctoral experience is going to line up with what you want. Are the salary and benefits sufficient for your needs? This is obviously a big one. You will need to be paid enough because you probably might have to start paying back student loans and things like that. So again, If you want to do a budget, you can go and download my budget template. Again, that's on Patreon, Educated STEM. Again, it's a whole $3. So, this means that you can just pop in your numbers and see and then compare the finances. And if you're moving either internationally or nationally, is the institution going to help you do that? Are they going to actually provide expenses for moving? If you're going internationally, are they going to assist you with your visa applications, maybe paying for the visa? Things like that. So hopefully I've given you a lot of things to consider. So please think about the things that I mentioned in the first video about whether you ought to be doing a postdoc or not. And now think about all of these questions that I've given you about whether the particular offer that you have, the mentor that you're considering, their lab, their location, things like that, is that a good fit for you? Are you going to be happy there? Are you going to be building your skill set? Is that going to help you move on to the next stage of your career? Whatever you think that is. I hope it will. But again, only you can answer that, and you have to actually do some self-reflection to decide. So I hope that helps. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Go to the Patreon page and download the documents if you think that they're going to be helpful for you. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.